Episode 11 of That Gives Me Anxiety. Ooh, coming off another solid weekend. Got a little beach time in. Found a new stretch of bars and restaurants that we're interested in here in Charleston. It was funny, one of the places we went, nice place on the water, having some lunch. And all of a sudden you look around and there's a bunch of bikers there. Now, not a shot at bikers. Bikers are cool. I wish I could be cool enough to ride a motorcycle. What's funny about this story is that these bikers were all wearing shirts that said, "Fuck you." And I hate everyone. I saw that on a shirt. And they were just like slamming home drinks. Having a time. Not doing anything wrong. But when you're wearing a shirt that or a hat that says "fuck you" and you're drinking like that, it makes me a little anxious. You know? But yeah, a lot of fun. Speaking of anxiety, Mr. Ollie got a little bit of training with a dog trainer this weekend. For those of you that are new to the podcast, Ollie shattered his right front leg, and it required 3 surgeries and a bunch of times putting him under so that they can check out his leg. And on the back end, he's doing fine now, but like on the back end, a bit more anxious, a bit more nervous about a lot of different things. So we're trying to work on his anxiety too. And he did all right. He was a little frustrated. We got a bunch of new commands for him, but that's good. We're all working on our mental health issues. And another good thing that we got going for us is it's football season, baby. I'm a Jets fan. I know. You're laughing at me. But what? I'm about to be 35. I'm gonna change teams now. I'm even drinking water from a New York Jets cup right now. But very excited. Jamie and I and some friends are headed to Charlotte because the Jets are actually playing the Carolina Panthers. And now that I live in Charleston, if my teams come close, I'm going to try to go when I'm free. So I'm excited about that. But there is always the anxiety of just like, because I'll be wearing a Jets hat, what are the Carolina fans going to be like? You hear these people getting absolutely beaten up. You know, you saw it even in Europe, you know, pinky up on the tee. England fans were fighting Italy fans in the Euro Cup. So yeah, hoping to check out Charlotte, and I'm definitely excited to go hang out there. All right. As for today's episode, our anxiety is brought to you by deep water. Ugh. Just saying that sent a shiver down my spine. It's the fear of the unknown. I'll share one story. I was with some friends vacationing on the Jersey Shore maybe 15 years ago. I was still in college at the time. And there was a tropical storm offshore, and so the waves were really, really choppy. And this part of the Jersey Shore had like a boardwalk that juts out with like rides and stuff, and so the waves can go under it. But it goes back, and you don't want to swim under there. It's almost a recipe for drowning, especially in the water that we were in, which we had no business being in. You know, I was trying to surf it, but it was just nothing clean. It was just choppy. It was just, we're all lucky we got out of the water. So we're in there, we're getting pounded. You know, we've had a few drinks, which makes it even more of a stupid story. We're getting across to the area, we're out past it, but where the rides and stuff, where the boardwalk juts out into the ocean a bit. And so we're just sitting on the board because just have to wait till you get ripped down the beach a little bit. When I want to say maybe 50 feet in front of us, a fin comes up out of the water, coming directly at us, and then lowers back down. I've never been more afraid. No one got bit, but it was horrifying just trying to get our feet all on our board. Some people were boogie boarding. One person was so afraid that they tried to swim under the part that I was describing that it was a recipe for drowning. I don't know how he didn't. Very lucky. But yeah, deep water, man. We don't know what's under there. And in fact, recently here at Sullivan's Island Beach, very small waves. Things were really calm. So you'd think you'd see anything coming. When I was in the water and I want to say 20 feet from me, dolphins start curling. It's like, where did you come from? So yeah, deep water is a little scary. And so to talk about this, I had an ex-colleague, Carter McCall, who I worked with at Cheddar, a very talented and smart video producer. Carter's even a little bit more uneasy than I am. He says he gets nervous even standing near the water. And to help us out with deep water anxiety, I had hypnotist Marc Carlin come on. Haven't had a hypnotist on before this. So it was really interesting to hear about the thought process and how hypnotists can help. And I think people will be really interested to see or to hear how Marc went about his business. I'm still posting interviews of from when I was trying to figure out the show, this and Death Space Filling the Void. And so this was recorded around the time of the election, so last November, about 10 months ago. I know, a long time. So you'll hear a few references to the stress of the election coming up. Well, all right, let's make our way to the interview. Before we get there, just want to say to check the show out on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and YouTube. And if you're liking the show, to please remember to rate and review it on whatever platform you're listening to it on. As always, thank you so much for listening. Joining me now to discuss a fear of deep water is former colleague Carter McCall. We work together at Cheddar. Carter, how's it going?
Good. I am uneasy to talk about something I'm uneasy about, but I'm happy to do it.
Well, I'm super appreciative because we also have with us today Marc Carlin, who's how did you put it? A results-based hypnotist?
Results hypnotist.
Yeah. So Marc's going to help us kind of work through Carter's issues a little bit and also kind of introduce the audience to what a results-based hypnotist may be able to do for them, which is encouraging. Carter, I want to start with, can you describe or kind of set the table related to your fears? When did you know? How has it affected you?
Yeah. It's funny. I was thinking today about, where my fear stemmed from. Like I guess I would describe it as this general uneasiness when I'm around like a large body of water.
Not even in it. You're
Yeah, just around it. Yeah, I could be standing on the shore. I could be in it. I could be swimming in it. But yeah, just generally feeling like the massiveness, I guess, of the body of water, whether it's like a lake or like the ocean. And I was thinking about it today because I never really dove that deep into why I felt uneasy about it. And I didn't even realize I felt uneasy about it until I started dating my girlfriend, who grew up on a very, very large lake in upstate New York. And one of the first visits I made up there, she was like, let's walk down to the lake and let's check it out. And I was very excited. And we were walking along the shore, and it was like the middle of winter, and it was really cold and it was really sparse. And I just happened to mention to her, I was like, oh yeah, I always get a little bummed out or a little uneasy around like big lakes. And she goes, what? Why? And I was like, wait, you don't feel that way? You don't feel a little uneasy about being around a big body of water and what could happen, or you never have that thought? And she's like, no, never. She's like, I love the lake. I grew up around the lake. This is such a huge part of my childhood and what I loved about growing up. And
I love her shock of a completely different experience.
Yeah, it was it bordered on being offended almost. I was kind of trashing on this idyllic lake that she grew up on. It was really interesting because I was thinking today about where that might stem from. And I can say that moments specifically in my childhood where I can say I felt acute fear or distress had something to do with water. And I had never thought about that, and I never connected the dots before. But yeah, there's moments in my childhood where I was really, really scared, and it had something to do, water was involved in some way. And that was the first time I thought about that, and I was kind of blown away that I was finally able to connect the root of where that came from.
Yeah. So is swimming in a lake or the ocean completely out of the question for you, or is that
It's not out of the question, but it is something that I don't always feel great about. Swimming in a pool is fine. I've always swam in pools and cool pools, but it's always been something about big bodies of water and lakes specifically, where I just don't like the feeling of feeling really small in something so big and not knowing how big it is.
Right. Yeah, I guess not knowing how deep it is can be somewhat concerning, and what's under there, what's swimming there. I mean, I feel like Jaws ruined a lot of people's
Absolutely.
Yeah. And the funny thing about that is I have like a distinct memory. Like I was really, really young. This might have been like my first memory of being afraid of like large bodies of water. And it happened to be a pool because like when I was young, like a pool was like the biggest body of water that I'd been around. And it was at the local YMCA. And the local YMCA had a swim team, and their mascot was the Sharks. And on the wall of this Olympic-sized swimming pool at the YMCA was this massive, massive mural of a great white shark with its mouth open. And I remember going there as a kid, staring at that and just internalizing that's the creature that lives in this massive body of water, and being like terrified that it's like going to swim out of the depths and like get me.
Oh my gosh, that sounds terrifying. Yeah. Well, Marc, I want to turn to you I saw you taking notes. I mean, Carter comes to you. How do you approach?
Well, I would be interviewing him similar to what you did. That's why I started taking notes, so I don't have to be redundant about certain things that he brings up. Mm-hmm. But you picked up on this as well when you mentioned to him that there was two very polar opposite views about being around the water, which from my point of view, and I'd like to share this with Carter because it's something that he could probably identify with and begin to adopt, is that there are different ways of responding to the very same exact stimuli. Mm-hmm. And if my point of view is, my training has taught me that if any human being can do anything, then any other human being is capable of doing that as well. Because we're all basically fundamentally the same. We have the same building blocks. We're all brought up to instinctively survive. And our experiences growing up really shape how we view the world. But we think we're locked into how we're brought up and how we're trained to view the world, but we're really not. We're just the product of our training. And the training that we've done has all been haphazard. So unless you focus on an outcome that you want and figure out a regimen to train yourself to get that outcome, everything just fell into place. And some of it worked and some of it didn't work. But the short-term effect has always been to protect you in some way and to make and to allow you to thrive. Even though it's short-term, it's benefiting you in some way. Taking your example of being in the water, we're not made to live in the water. We don't have gills. We can't breathe underwater. We can't even keep up with a fish. We can't swim that well. Even if you learn how to swim, the most broken fish will outswim an Olympic swimmer because we're just not, that's not our environment.
Right.
So on a very basic level, is it safer to be out of the water for us as humans? And the answer is absolutely yes, it's safer. But holding on to that, if you hold on to that fear to keep us away from the water, we also eliminate pleasure that you can get being on the water. And also there's a safety factor where you should allow yourself to learn, if you're ever going to be around the water, and who knows when you are or aren't, you should learn how to basically keep yourself alive. And that doesn't mean you have to be an Olympic swimmer, but you have to get more comfortable being in the water, just for survival abilities, which would be very helpful. And if you have a desire, if you have this girlfriend that you might develop a long-term relationship with, her love for being on the water might stifle the development. It just might not work just because of this little thing. And all it really takes for you is, you don't have to love it the way she loves it, but at least kind of accept it and enjoy it. I mean, to me, the water is very beautiful. However, I can identify with what you're describing, because if I'm in the water, if I get into my head and I start going, what's under there? Because I grew up on the water in a boat, fishing, going shark fishing, blue fishing, tuna fishing out in the ocean, and I know what's under the water. I've seen it come up on the boat, and so sometimes, when I was younger, that would affect me. When one day we used to go swimming, fishing, and one day we used to go swimming. So we'd go out to an area called Zack's Bay and off of Jones Beach. And we take the boat out there and go swimming off the boat. And then on another day on the weekend, we'd go out fishing. And sometimes I would get in my head that what is under the water. Now, part of this is instinctual because the unknown, and that's what you're talking about, because the water body has to be bigger. It has to be an area that you can't see in. Like in a pool, you pretty much know it's a confined space. You know, there's nothing living under there that's going to surprise you. It's a fairly controlled environment. A big lake is totally uncontrolled. And very often people who swim in lakes, they get a little bit antsy about the bottom, which is kind of usually muddy. There's wildlife living in the ocean or in the lakes as well. So that unknown factor comes into play. Most people are a little hesitant to be in the dark. You know, when we're in the dark, we lose our sense of vision and we rely upon our vision to navigate the world. So when you cut off your vision, and you should be able to see, I mean, when you cut off your vision and you go to sleep, it's not a big deal because, you know, you're going to sleep, you know, you're in a safe environment. But if you walk into a place that's really dark and it has no lights, a little bit of noise, you kind of worry about what is there. So that is a defense mechanism, and it's real. It's helpful because we should be aware. You know, you could trip over something in the dark, you could bang into things. It adds a level of danger to your environment when you can't see.
It seems like the first thing that you're describing here is to acknowledge and accept your fear for what it is as like a helpful tool.
Yes, because part of that is helpful, and just accept it and let it go. But there's this thing that we do to ourselves very often, where our mind will think about something that causes fear. And then when our mind thinks about that fear, what happens is hormones are released into your body that'll start to elicit this fight or flight response. It's actually a freeze, fight or flight response. These hormones are really powerful because they're meant to agitate you, meant to get you riled up for preparing yourself to either run or fight, or hold your breath and just, you know, try to make yourself really small, freeze. But that's the purpose of those hormones. Now, once those hormones are released, it's going to take a little bit of time for them to work their way through your body. Could take 10, 15 minutes, which is not a big deal. 10 or 15 minutes, you're a little agitated and then it goes away. But the problem is with people that keep on thinking about that fear over and over again in their mind, they're looping through that fear. It doesn't give the hormone time to dissipate in your body. So you continue to feel that agitation. And that's what most people who have this uncontrolled fear are dealing with. It's that the mind is running wild, and they think they're not in control of their mind, but we actually do have ways of being in control of our mind. And so part of it is working with you to give you different responses. Do it through mental rehearsal. The process of hypnosis is just a process where an operator, such as myself, a hypnotist, will help to guide you into a trance state. There are a lot of different ways of going into trance. One of the most common ways of going into trance is through relaxation. It's not the only way. It's not even the most effective way of going into trance or the quickest way, but it's an easy way for a hypnotist working in an office to guide people into trance. Plus, most people, once they really experience very deep relaxation, they love it. We're agitated most of the time. You know, it's very different than what we're used to. And all of a sudden they wake up or they come out of trance and they think to themselves, boy, that is, you know, that's different. That feels great. They love, it's the relaxation part that helps them to feel great. The hypnosis is not relaxation. But relaxation is like the doorway into that hypnotic trance. And when we're in that hypnotic trance, we become more suggestible, meaning that when you're hypnotized, if I suggest to you something, I'm going to tap into your imagination. Right now, your imagination, Carter, is going off on the deep end about what's the worst case scenario. What can scare the shit out of me? That's what I want. I want to be scared so crazily that I won't go in the water. And that's what your mind is looping on, but that's your imagination. So one of the ways that I'm not working with you, when I work with you, a lot of things happen as things come up. Before I start to work with someone, I have a game plan in mind, like what would I do in these situations? So I'm going to give you examples of what I could do rather than exactly what I would do, because frankly, I don't really know what I'm going to do until I'm doing it. Because I'm getting information from you. Trance opens up the doorway to communication on an energetic level. I mean, it sounds woo-woo. It's really not. It's just we communicate non-verbally all the time. We're broadcasting information. Our facial muscles, the hormones elicit responses in our facial muscles, even our body language. It's all part of our communication. Most of us don't. We might pick up on it, but we're not cognizant of it. We don't really know it as a reliable source of information, but it is something like, you get a sense of how someone is. That's what we're really talking about. You're reading their body language, their facial expressions, the nonverbal cues. So when I'm working with someone, I'm getting nonverbal cues from them, as well as it's hard to even explain this without making it sound woo-woo, because I'm the most analytical type of guy that you could find. So I'm not anti-woo-woo, but there's so much information that we just don't accept as valid, that I've seen it happen over and over again. I can't explain it, but I just accept it, just open it up to accepting that these are some possibilities that happen. But very often when I'm working with someone, I'll get ideas pop into my mind. Sometimes it's the same idea as the person sitting in the chair is thinking, or I'm working with is thinking. So I always go with whatever comes up, whatever it feels right. And if things don't work, I'll pretty much know it fairly quickly as well, because I might get a response, a nonverbal response from the person I'm working with that indicates that was the wrong branch of the road to go off on, and we'll just back it up.
Well, I understand you're not, it's different. We're on Zoom and Carter's not in the room with you, but I guess I'm curious about putting what you're describing in practice, at least a little bit, to give us a sense of what it might look like.
Sure. Well, Zoom actually is a great way of working with people with hypnosis. You don't have to be in the same room as somebody. Frankly, when I work with people in my office, once I interview them and I hypnotize them, their eyes are closed. They could be anywhere in the world. So once I'm working with them on Zoom, once their eyes are closed and they're following my instructions, they could be anywhere. It really doesn't matter. In fact, before there was such a thing as video chats, I'd been doing sessions over the phone with people that weren't able to come into the office.
Oh, so that's good news given the COVID situation.
Absolutely. And this whole topic that you're talking about is very apropos to our situation, because a lot of people are afraid of COVID. And now they've spent the last 7, 8, 9 months training themselves to avoid other people. And they're going to have to become reintegrated into an open society again, which could be problematic for some people, because you've trained yourself to avoid everybody. Don't get close, run away, put a mask on, all of that. It's valid. I'm not saying anything against it. It's helpful. But somewhere along the line, the doors are going to open up and people are going to get back to normal living. It might be in the next few months. It might be in the next few years. But if you look back over to when the Spanish flu was a pandemic, that ended and people got back into living their life again.
So much so that we forgot the rules of pandemics. Right?
Yeah, exactly. So this is very apropos for that, because there are a lot of people that have this fear that they're dealing with.
Oh yeah, I've definitely felt that. I've had instances recently where we would, me and my girlfriend this was several weeks ago, where we went to go see a large group of friends in the park for the first time. And it was unexpectedly very anxiety inducing to have to do the social thing. I don't know how to describe it, but to be in that environment again, you're so happy and you're so relieved to see people, but it's also oh wow, I have to get back into doing the social dance,
laughing at bad jokes and
right, yeah, seeming interested,
Carter, do you have any times when you also have a fear? You mentioned this, you have this fear of water. Do you have any other times, any other instances when you have that level of fear or you have a similar fear?
I would say like I have a fair amount of like social anxiety. But yeah, I think social anxiety is something that I've experienced and can experience, speaking specifically to seeing people again with COVID.
Okay. So sometimes, we learn a response to protect ourselves, and we might start to generalize out. I always like to point out that our subconscious mind, because that's the way that we describe what I do, is working with the subconscious mind. It's the part of our mind that isn't so readily available. Our conscious mind, if we say, I'm going to go down to the store, that's your conscious mind. And your conscious mind starts to figure out, well, got to get dressed, got to go to the door, got to get outside, got to go down to the store, got to come back. It navigates your world pretty easily. That's all part of the conscious mind. When you say, I got to go down to the store, and all of a sudden you get the feeling inside, things are not so easy going down to the store, that you get a visceral response. That's an emotion that's coming up tied to the analytical conscious mind, but that's other than conscious mind that's making you feel that way. And it's for totally different reason. You got to go to the store to get some food. It has nothing to do with going into the store and getting some food. That feeling is probably associated with something else, and it's some kind of a message. Every emotion that we have is a message from our subconscious, and that message is designed to protect us. So fear is one of the big emotions, obviously. That emotion means that there's danger, so be careful. Now, if you take it to the point where you think that the fear that is coming up or the danger is so drastic that you have to stay away, that's an intense fear, okay? And if it's real, if it's relevant to protect you, then all is good. But if it's overwhelming fear, then it's not good, because it's preventing you from doing something. Like going into the water, if it's just a nice bucolic lake, everything is nice for most people. You might not look at it that way, but for most people, it's just it's a safe environment. They've been in the waters many times. No one's ever gotten hurt. It's basically generally accepted as a safe lake to hang out in. If you experience it in your mind without even going into the lake as fearful, then you can pretty much be assured that it's based upon your past experiences somewhere. You picked that up from some past experience, because you weren't presented with a fearful situation at that moment with the lake. So it has to be from some past experience. What happens in our past is that we have these unresolved emotional responses. So I have absolutely no idea what happened in your past, and you might not either at this point. And very often it doesn't matter. Okay, it really doesn't matter, because your past is your past. We bring our past into the present, and then it causes a problem. Let's say if you had some experience as a very young child, even an infant, where you had maybe mom gave you a bath and you got some water in your mouth and you couldn't breathe and you started crying and choking. You were a baby. You don't remember that. But it happened, and now you linked being submerged in a bathtub or being submerged in water with a fearful response. Now, you don't have enough information as a very young child or infant to really deal with that situation. You understood it as life and death. That gets stored somewhere in your psyche, that water is dangerous. And you might have a few more instances where, maybe you were playing around with your buddies and you were dunking each other. People were making you hold your breath, and whatever it was. Those were uncomfortable experiences, and they were intensified because you had this other thing stored from the past. So now all of these instances, these fear of water, keep going in the same little cubbyhole, stored right there. When the emotion in the present kind of resonates with the emotions that are stored, that box opens up and all those emotions from the past come into the present. And now you end up with an overwhelming response to a fairly benign situation, where now your fear is out of control, but it's not really that fearful a situation. And that's what that's what you deal with. There's a representation for the word fear. You might have heard about it. It's called fear, is FEAR, which is false evidence appearing real, which is what is your experience when you're in a safe situation, but you're feeling fearful.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. So, like I said, you don't need to know exactly what all of those unresolved issues are. With hypnosis, you can get that. You can unravel that. It's not my preferred way of dealing with this with someone. Because you open up all these bad feelings, which means the person you're dealing with is going to start to feel all these bad feelings again. And then you start working them out. It's like
kind of like Pandora's box, I guess.
Yeah. So it's not my first go-to approach. I'd rather teach you how to feel better when you're in this setting, and there's no need for that overwhelming fear. Sometimes you do need to release all those unresolved fear or whatever the emotion is from the past. Fear is that message from the subconscious that it's dangerous. You're in a dangerous situation. If you're feeling angry, that's an indication that you're being treated unfairly, or somebody that you love or care about is being treated unfairly. You're going to feel angry. If you feel sad, it's an indication that you lost somebody. So every time you have an emotion, in order to resolve the emotion, you have to do what the emotion is asking you to do. If you don't do it, it'll find another way to get your attention, because it wants to be resolved. So the another expression is the emotions left unexpressed find expression. Mm-hmm. So what I was getting at that point was that, there's a social anxiety, which is a similar emotion. And when it doesn't get addressed, if that was the first fear and it's not addressed, you'll find other things to be fearful of. So it kind of like expands out and grows, where you only had this social anxiety. Now you're afraid of water. Then you're going to be afraid of driving in a car. I don't even want to make suggestions along those lines, but all of a sudden all these fears that everybody else's experiences, you start getting more and more of them.
Mm-hmm. Is that a general way that people in your profession talk about it?
Hypnosis, the hypnosis profession is getting a lot better than it's ever been. Mm-hmm. Let me just put that out there. It's much better than it's ever been. The problem with hypnosis as a profession is that there is no set curriculum that the hypnotist learns to do things with. So you're pretty much left on your own. As we were talking about being left on our own, learning things as you go along. The way that I learned hypnosis was that I found a hypnotist that was teaching other people how to be hypnotists. And you learn from that one person. Then I found another person had a different view of things and also a different business model. And then I went through like 5, 10. I'm continuing to learn always, because your experiences are really what determine your expertise. And you're limited by your own experience. But if you can learn from other people's experiences, you can magnify your own learnings tremendously. So that's why it's always good to keep learning, keep in touch with other hypnotists, find out their approaches to things. And it's very helpful in that regard.
Got it. I guess there's more than one way to skin a cat when it comes to hypnotizing people. I just think of the guy with the watch on the chain.
Yeah, there's certain steps that we're taught that people need to go into. You don't need any of that. You don't need any of that. If you get on a roller coaster with your girlfriend and you sit in the front car, you are blasting through hypnotic trance that whole ride. And when you get off that ride, there's so many hormones flooding through your body that when you just grab her and look at her, you'll bond with her like a mother bonds with a baby, because of the hormone that's flooding through both of your bodies at that point. And that is one of the most dramatic and most quickest ways of being hypnotized, is to go on a roller coaster.
Wait, so you hypnotize people on roller coasters?
No, the whole process of being on a roller coaster is hypnotic.
Oh, wow.
People go into hypnotic trance on that roller coaster.
What is it? It's the flood of chemicals that you
flood of chemicals, plus they're in an environment that they're totally out of control. They've released all of that level of control to this device. They're totally gone. They're totally, it's someone else's power that's taken over them.
You know, Mark, that's so interesting that you bring that up, because over, I would say, the past decade, I've had this uneasiness and this fear of water. But one thing that I've discovered that I absolutely love, and I love doing, that involves water, is whitewater rafting. And it is something where, like, the first time I did it, I was absolutely terrified. To be on white water is just like, everything that felt unsafe about water. But it was so much fun. And it was so much fun because I felt like I had no control of the situation. And I just had to, like, lean into it.
Yeah, you let go. You just totally let go. You let it happen. You had fun. And that is a great experience. And that's something that you should use when you use your imagination, because this is a part where we use our imagination incorrectly. Our imagination is very powerful. It creates all these hormonal responses within us. Fear and excitement are very closely related. I spent most of my life teaching skiing, which is a very fearful sport for a lot of people who've never skied before. And when I used to teach kids were easy. I get a kid over in a group, and we're getting onto a chairlift, and the kid looks up at me. He goes, "Ooh, that's scary." And I go, "Yeah, it's really exciting, isn't it?" And the kid would go, Yeah, it's exciting. It's exciting. So boom, they change the fear to excitement like in an instant.
Is it just like a framing? Is it just being like, I have this feeling, and I can either call it fear or I can call it being excited?
It is framing, yes, but you also have to buy into it. You have to fully accept it. Because if a part of you just frames it, oh, that's not so scary, but you're scared out of your mind and you don't let go of that fear, you're going to be afraid, no matter what you call it.
Right.
That's what happens when people fail at doing affirmations. They start to do these sayings that I'm powerful, I'm strong, I'm thin, I'm healthy, I'm beautiful. And then if none of that is true, then they get verification that none of it is true. And so it's just a waste of time. Affirmations are helpful. They do work, but you have to choose your goals very carefully. It's like walking up a flight of stairs. You can't get to the top stair in one step. You got to take it slow at your own pace. Whatever you can reach, that's what you have to go for. It's a progression. And if you look at it that way, then you'll be successful using affirmations. But that is usually a blockage that happens when people use affirmations and don't get the success that they want.
Are your Excel skills optimized for your current job? I remember the stress I felt having to switch from Final Cut Pro to Premiere. They're both video editing software. It can be daunting to switch or have to continuously learn a new program. In fact, I learned Premiere by telling a company that I knew Premiere when I didn't. And I just figured it out and really threw myself into the pool to make sure I knew it because I knew I needed to know it. So learning software is very important, especially if you lied and need to catch up. Do you know the basics but need to learn more? My software tutor offers 3 levels of real-time Zoom-based courses with a live instructor. Yeah, I need a live instructor. There's a lot of video tutorials out there, but having someone ask questions feels a lot better, a lot easier. They all deliver practical, functional business skills in a friendly, supportive environment. These courses will increase your marketability, whether you're an employee, job seeker, consultant, or contractor. Register at mysoftwaretutor.com and use the promo code POD20 to save 20% off all registrations. Today's episode is also brought to you by the Cartist. This is a service that basically helps you mail cards with a special message on the inside. They help you write that. That's amazing. Because Jamie's always laughing at me because I usually just write the person's name, dear so-and-so, and then at the end, just write, love, Pat and Jamie. Just when you get to writing the card, you feel so put on the spot. I'm pretty expressive with how I feel in my relationship with my friends or with my family, so yeah, it's also hilarious to be admitting that I feel like I'm really put on the spot and couldn't think of anything to say. 8 years of improv training down the drain. But With so many birthdays, there's no time to shop for cards, write the cards, and buy the stamps. Now you can do it all right where you sit, because the Cartist Studio does it for you. That's great. I want more things where people do it for you. Make your life easier. Introducing a writing specialist for the message inside your greeting cards. The Cartist Studio creates your message, writes it in the card, and mails it for you. The post office... One tough thing when I used to live in Brooklyn was the lines at the post office. Insane. South Carolina, it's just, you walk right in, you walk right out. The most recent man who helped me was like smiling at me. I'm so used to the post office just being like, get out of here. We have more people to get in. Just see the line, hurry up. All you do is pick the card and tell why you're sending it. No more errands, no more anxiety. For a message from your heart, but not your hands. Sit back and just enjoy your relationships. TheCartistStudio.com. Thoughtful, just got easy. And you can use the promo code AnxietyPod for 10% off all orders.
Marc, I want to go back to something you were mentioning before with fear kind of being closed off or finding a channel out, right? Because it can be kind of stuck. It seems like by Carter using whitewater rafting, it's like a way of channeling fear out, similar to what your goal is as the hypnotist.
Mm-hmm. Certainly an example that he can actually make friends with the water. He can have a good time in the water, which is something that he can use in his imagination. That's what I was getting to, using your imagination. When you're in that environment where you start to feel this fear, a good response to that would be to just take a step back, physically move in a different direction, do whatever you can to clear your mind, just laugh, go, hey, why am I feeling this fear? What is this about? Laughter is like an in-between emotion. So you're shifting out of the fear into the laughter. It's a neutral emotion. Now you can choose where you want to go. So you step back, you kind of go, why do I feel like this? Maybe laugh about it. Go, that's not how I want to feel. This is a beautiful environment. I have this beautiful woman with me that I love. I'm having a good time. I should be having a good time. Why am I feeling this way? Don't give it bad energy. Just go, hey, why am I feeling this way? And as soon as you get into that little laughter, a little bit upper feeling of laughter, use your imagination and go back to that time when you were rafting. Remember when I was rafting? What a great experience that was. When you start to use your past experiences to benefit you, you'll get all the benefits from it, just the way you've used your past experiences to hurt you. We don't use our experiences properly. So as a hypnotist, we call getting into that fear state because of past experiences a really bad use of your imagination. It's called poor, really bad hypnosis.
How soon into a session or how many sessions do you typically need for a person to feel a little bit better with what's troubling them, and maybe have the tools to help themselves?
Generally, people will start feeling better right away in the very first session because we're talking about relaxation.
Yeah.
When you're fearful, you're tense. When I take you from tension to relaxation, and if you actually get that relaxation, because you don't need to get it to be hypnotized. As I said, relaxation and hypnosis are two different things, but very often we'll get you to a good state of relaxation. That just doing that will make you feel better. And if we start to unravel some things or teach you different ways of responding, that adds in hope. Now you're hopeful that things will get better. Generally, 4 to 6 sessions is what most people see a hypnotist for to get the results that they're looking for. On average, 4 to 6 sessions. There are things that I work with that happen in one session. Depending upon when we're talking about fear response or people who are very anxious, part of that problem I've discovered over the many years that I've worked with people is that they want it to be done immediately. They want to be done with this immediately. So instead of feeling hopeful, sometimes they start to generate all this other fears around other things. So their first session is successful in the point where they start to feel a little better. And then they before the next session, they might start thinking about, well, I felt a little better, but now it's all coming back again. All the other stuff, the good feeling that I felt when I left the office only lasted for a day or a couple of days, or only lasted a few hours. Now that the fear or the anxiety that they're experiencing kicks in. What if this isn't going to work? What if I'm different? What if it won't work for me? So they start to develop this problematic thinking about the process. So they take all the fear that they've been putting to, let's say, the water, and now they're putting it all onto the process.
Right.
Yeah, that's so interesting because I've never been hypnotized, but if you'd ask me what does a hypnotist do? I'd be like, oh, you go there if you have a problem like smoking, and you tell the person, I want to stop smoking, and they do their mystical hypnotism, and then you walk out of the hypnotist's office and you never smoke a cigarette again. That's my general understanding of how hypnosis is supposed to work. So if I was a smoker and then 2 days later I get really stressed out and I have a cigarette, I would be probably, mad at myself for not, whatever internal thing is that makes me smoke is probably broken.
And that can be a problem. See, smoking is one of those things where it does happen in the very first session. And very often
really?
I never see people again. But because of the response that you described, because that happens, that does happen. People, they've tried everything. They couldn't stop smoking, and they come to see me, and I get them to be a non-smoker in the first session. They leave the office being a non-smoker. They tell me, they reaffirm it 3 times before they leave the office that they're non-smokers. And then they go out, and either they live their life without smoking anymore, or the thought of a cigarette pops into their mind, and they're easily able to avoid it. Because, they get this, what am I thinking that? I don't do that anymore. I don't feel like having a cigarette. Or they cave and they have a cigarette and they might feel like, oh, I failed. Or the hypnosis didn't work for me. So in order to work with me, my basic program for smoking is 2 sessions. Even though most people are done in 1 session, they come in for 2 sessions. The second session very often is used as a backup just in case they slip up. Because I don't want people to start thinking what you just described is, I'm a failure. It's not going to work for me. Because that's not the issue at all. The issue is that you've spent 10, 15, 20, 30, 40, 50 years smoking cigarettes. You've been training yourself in this behavior, this pattern all this time. Yeah, you're going to have to move out of your comfort zone. And very often it's extremely easy to be a non-smoker for a set amount of time. And then you kind of cave in, or you can cave in. That's the danger. You cave in. And then you think, oh, it didn't work because I caved in. It's a process. Everything is a process. We need to train ourselves. We need to reinforce the behaviors that we want and avoid the behaviors we don't want. It's a routine learning, how we learn things. We do it through repetition. And so you've repeated a behavior so often that it's just a habit. We're looking to get you to the point where you let go of that old habit and replace it with a better habit. Like breathing. You breathe every day. That should be a habit. Breathe fresh air without cigarettes. Yeah. But yeah, cigarettes is one of those things that it does happen like that. It's very quick. Very often, I think it's because we're not designed to smoke. In fact, we're programmed to run away from smoke and fire. We watched the Disney show with the Bambi, with all the little animals running out of the woods because it was on fire. That's us. We'd be running away. So why would you bring all that smoke and the fire into your most sensitive part of your body, into your lungs? Yeah. So I think there are certain things going for us. Smoking is not a natural behavior. Feeling fear is a natural behavior. The level of fear, though, is out of whack with what your experiences are. So that's why we need to change that response.
Well, Carter, we kind of used your deep water fear as a test case to see what hypnotism was all about. I'm curious what your reactions are to what you've heard here.
I think it makes a lot of sense. I think what we've been talking about makes a lot of sense in specifically of, like the fight or flight response, obviously, that feeling and recycling that feeling in a moment where I feel uncomfortable, and specifically thinking about times when I felt like deeply uncomfortable or afraid, in the water, like my immediate response is like, I just need to get out of the water and I'll be fine. You know, everybody's having a great time around me and I can just like get out of the water quietly and I'll be good. You talked about like the first step of hypnosis is like relaxation. And like, I never thought about that. I thought it was like something where like the hypnotist like kind of does like a sleight of hand where he gets you to like watch the watch on the chain and he snaps his fingers and your brain, a switch goes in your brain and you fall asleep. But it makes a lot of sense. Even like talking now, I feel like is a really good example. I mean, like I felt really nervous coming into this because I didn't know what to expect or I didn't know like how I'd react like talking about it. And like I feel like the first half of the conversation, I was like really tense and then my internet cut out and that was like such a bizarre thing. And I felt so bad and I was like, oh man, I just ruined this podcast. So like my brain was no longer like worried about what I was doing or what I was saying or what like might happen. That when I got back on, like that was no longer something where I was like more involved, more invested, and I was much more relaxed. And I felt more engaged with what you were saying.
Cool.
So, but yeah, it was really interesting that like even that little bit, that first step of relaxation can go a very long way.
I got a question for you. When you think about that time when you were with your girlfriend around the lake, can you bring it up in your mind?
Yes, I can.
Can you bring up that fear associated with that at that time?
Yes, I can.
And if you were to describe that fear, is it like right in front of you? That whole fear thing, is the image of that fear right in front of you? Is it off to the side, left or right? Is it up? Is it down?
It's behind me. It's like behind my head, kind of like above my head, like a halo a little bit.
Cool. It's almost touching or really close?
It's like fairly close, yeah.
Okay, so what I want you to do is I want you to just imagine that halo or that thing, whatever it is that's almost touching, it's all the way moving further and further back from you. And just bring it as far back as you can, because it's basically in your past.
Mm-hmm.
And your past, very often we look at our past as behind us. So move it all the way back as far as you can. And the size of it, is it very big? Is it very small?
It's like a small, I'm imagining it as like a small rain cloud.
Does it have a color?
Like a dark gray, like
Dark
a light
gray.
gray to like a dark gray, like a rain cloud would be.
So if you move it as far back as you can and make it, make it really tiny, like it's almost like a drop of rain, and it changed the color to something a little bit more vibrant. How does it affect you now when you think about that?
It makes me feel very calm and
Cool.
like excited.
Yeah.
And very like soothed.
Now take that whole image with that all behind you and the different color and the size and everything, and go back to being in that environment with your girlfriend. And how do you feel about it now?
Like very relaxed and like very still. Like I'm imagining like it was in the middle of winter and like my girlfriend was talking about how she loved like how like pensive she could be. And like I feel that and like in that space how you could like be like very like feel very quiet and very calm, which I didn't feel at the time.
Yeah. So now I want you just to assign a color to this whole image. Assign just envelop the whole thing in a color that feels really good to you. And so anytime that you get around an environment, around a lake or anywhere else that has no reason on earth for you to feel fearful of it, bring up that color, which will bring up this whole image. Now, this is just an example of using your imagination in a more productive way.
That was great.
All it is your imagination.
That was great. I felt like very good about that. Yeah.
Part of your body language too. I feel like at times when you've been speaking, like you've been crunching your shoulders down, but like right now you're sitting back, it's loose.
Yeah, I could feel that. That's really interesting that you say that, because like when you were talking, Mark, I felt it in like my shoulders and my arms. Like I felt like the weight go away from there.
Cool.
Yeah, that I didn't even know was there. Yeah, that was super interesting.
It's amazing where we hold on to all of our tension, and when the tension goes, we recognize it. If it didn't go, we would just think it was normal.
Yeah.
Because we just get so accustomed to it. It is normal, unfortunately.
Well,
so
Mark,
our minds are very powerful, very powerful. And we're the ones who are in control of our minds. So when people see a hypnotist, a good hypnotist, all he's doing is teaching you how to control your own mind. And a lot of people don't believe that they have that level of control, but we all do.
It's very encouraging. Marc, how can people get a hold of you if they would like to work with you?
I can be reached at area code 212-223-1832. A couple of websites that I have where you can reach me as well is Marc Carlin, MarcCarlin.com, as well as hypnoticstate.com. That's
great.
hypnoticstate.com.
I could see a lot of people being very interested in your services after this. I think this will open a lot of minds to what you guys or what you could do for them, which is very encouraging. Thank you very much.
I appreciate it very much. I appreciate you taking the time to speak with me about this, and it was perfect timing.
Great. Hey, Carter, thank you so much for being open and honest.
Absolutely. Carter, yes, absolutely. I know people don't realize how much this takes. So much appreciation.
Well, thank you. I appreciate everything you guys did and allowing me to talk about it.
Cool.
And people could see your work at the Wall Street Journal?
Yes. I'm a video journalist at the Wall Street Journal. So you can check
Very
it out.
talented. Makes very, very thought-provoking pieces. I definitely recommend his work.
Well, during these times, it might invoke some anxiety for some people.
We're recording this around the election.
Right.
Gentlemen, both, thank you very much. And good luck with the anxiety.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You got it.
I feel like I got to do more with hypnosis. That part at the end with having Carter describe what his anxiety looked like and felt like and where it was is so interesting. My sister Jenna has also gone to a hypnotist to help with flight anxiety and said it worked. I mean, she visited the person before a flight to South Africa, which is, that's an all-day thing, right? Thank you so much to Carter for opening up and talking about his anxiety, and to Marc for showing us the hypnotist ropes. If you're anxious about deep water, I hope this helps or sparks something that can help you make things a little bit easier for you. All right. Instead of doing an anxiety hall of fame here, I'm going to try a new segment called That Gives Me Anxiety? Like a question. I thought it'd be fun to point out sometimes that have made me anxious when I probably shouldn't have. Like, for example, last week I was making salads for Jamie and I became anxious that I hadn't put enough salad dressing on my salad, and it's one of those times that anxiety just waterfalls and you're like, why? It's like, I would just taste the salad and put more. Or like, outside of it now, rationally, it sounds crazy. But when anxiety's got its hold on you, oof, anxiety take the wheel. So yeah, that has been the first edition of That Gives Me Anxiety. Well, as always, I want to thank you so much for listening. Don't forget my other podcast, Death Space Filling the Void. It's a show about grief, psychology, mortality, space, physics, all of that. If you're interested, you can check that out wherever you get your podcasts. If you're a football fan, good luck to your team. Unless you're a Carolina Panthers fan. Enjoy your weekend, and I'll talk to you next Thursday.